Today we are planting more bare root fruit trees. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you today. It is actually January 30th, 2021. We've actually been planting like crazy here in the winter time here in 2021 in Arizona, and this really is the peak time for trees just like this. These trees we actually picked up from Greg Peterson in the Urban Farm Fruit Tree Program. He orders Dave Wilson trees in, and now's the time to pick them up. In fact, he's only got one more weekend where he's got pickups for his fruit trees, so he kind of snuck in there just in time. So one of the options that we have with his program is we have the option of bringing in special order trees. He's got specific trees that he orders every year and has available, and he has a special order program, and that's actually where we found these trees. Now this specific variety we've actually carried before. In fact, we had it on the old farm and it did really well. This is the Ein Shemer apple. This particular apple is something a little bit more unique for us here in Arizona. Most people are used to the Anna and the Golden Dorsette apple. We have those as well. Fantastic apples that do really, really well. Now the Ein Shemer is very, very similar. In fact, from a ripening standpoint, we found that it ripens at about the same time as those two. Maybe just a little bit later, but essentially on par with those two varieties. So one of the things we found out here in Arizona is those early summer apples are really our wheelhouse. That's where we do our best as far as production, is in those early summer varieties, and these are no different. The Ein Shemer apple was actually developed and bred in Israel. Now the Middle East, we've got a lot of you guys out there that watch us in the Middle East. Our weather here in Arizona is very, very similar to that. Obviously, one of the reasons why you guys watch us here, and we talk a lot about things that are going to work there, and of course, things that work there work well here as well. This tree is one of those. You can see they're bare root trees. This is how Greg gets them in. So this will give you an idea of what these trees look like here before we get them planted. Now, we have talked about bare root trees before. You can see that one's nice and wide. That's how Greg gets all of his trees in, with just a few exceptions. And for us here in Arizona in January, these Dave Wilson trees will come in this way, and actually we found that they do really, really well once you get them in the ground. These trees have been sitting in this water. This is a combination of vitamin B1 and just our well water that we have here on the farm. These have been soaking in that to rehydrate now for about 3 hours, which is about as long as you really want to have them in here. However, at this point, we're ready to go ahead and get them planted. So let's talk a little bit about the area that we're at on the farm and what it's going to take to get these trees in. This is actually our eastern orchard. We have all of our pome fruit that are coming through here, and we start out this side running from north to south with all of our summer apples. So we have Anna and Golden Dorsette. We will have some tropic sweet apples that we'll be getting from Reed, hopefully here in the next month or two. And then this next set of rings right here will be these Ein Shemer apples. So all of these apples, so we've got 12 trees here, all 12 of these trees will be our production apples here on the farm. You can see we have wood chips down on the ground. These have been here now for a couple of weeks. The nice part about this last week, we got some nice rain, got about 3/4 of an inch of rain that was spread out over a couple days. These have had a lot of moisture down on the ground. This is a good prep for us because it'll be a lot easier for us to dig the holes to get these trees in the ground. So Lori and I are gonna go ahead and get to work, get these wood chips removed so we can work on getting these trees planted. We've got the hole dug. Now, we do have to be careful with how wide we make the hole. You'll see we kind of designed it so it's actually matching the root mass here. You can see these roots, they're not extremely deep. I have my root crown right here, so we're gonna make sure that's above ground. The roots go down probably about 3 or 4 inches. So as we kind of judge this, I know I'm down on the bottom there, so I've hit the bottom, and I'm about an inch or so up from the base. You also saw us amending this. We're amending it with that basic Kellogg's garden soil. We've showed you that before. That's really to loosen this up more than anything. That will allow us to get this dirt kind of packed in and around all of these feeder roots. I really like the way these roots look. Sometimes all you get is just large tap type roots. This has a lot of smaller hair roots in it. I love seeing that. Now, we are limited as far as how far out we're gonna come with this hole, because we are gonna have an irrigation channel that goes around here, an irrigation ring, just around the outside of this, and I don't want that ring out too far away from the tree itself to allow water to penetrate in. If you guys have seen our other planting videos and how we irrigate, you'll recognize that. Now, in addition, this is the graft point right here. We've talked a lot about the root crown. Also want to talk a little bit about the graft point. So this graft point, there's an open area where the trunk actually was. You'll see right here is actually where the graft was made. So the graft union is here. This is the rootstock here. That's the continuation of the rootstock that was actually cut off in order to do the graft. So this is kind of an open wound still, even though it's healed over really well. It's kind of an open wound that eventually heals over and it creates a straight trunk. So the way I have this faced, this is actually facing north, not south. Of course, we have extremely intense UV rays and sunlight. You will see us painting the trunk of this to help protect from that. At the same time, I want to make sure that that's not pointing directly south. So as we were kind of looking at the hole, we judged it as far as coming off of the irrigation to keep it straight. We know how far out away from that we want to be, which is about 5 feet to allow for our irrigation rings. And I know this has to face north, so we dug the hole out heavier on this side because most of the roots are going this way. So you'll see the hole is not perfectly round. In addition, I've dug further down, so there's probably a good 3 to 4 inches of loose soil below this tree. So this tree is going to sink somewhat. In addition, you saw me pruning, so I took some of the longer roots on this side that I couldn't accommodate in the hole and actually just trimmed them back slightly so that it actually fits in the hole. So of course, now what we need to do is go ahead and get soil around this. We've talked a little bit about this open space underneath your root ball here. You want to make sure the soil you're packing in is nice and loose so that you can get soil up in and around this. You don't want to have air pockets in there because things like rodents, and we've got, I think they're called clown beetles or stink beetles. They'll build like little nests and stuff underneath there. So I want to pack that in nice and tight to help keep that from happening. And then of course, air pockets with moist soil, you know, you have chances for fungus and that kind of thing to build up in there. We don't want that either. So now what we need to do is go ahead and get this tree packed in. One last thing, we talked a little bit about the root crown. That is my crown right there. That's gonna be my planting depth that I'm gonna keep a couple inches above soil grade, which is right here. So this tree is gonna probably wind up here, so it's mounded up slightly. Even though I've loosened up the dirt underneath, we have very, very hard soil here in Arizona. You wanna get that up away from that caliche layer that the vast majority of us are dealing with, and then allow the roots to, of course, grow out from there. All right, enough talking. We need to get this tree in the ground. So we have this tree planted. Couple things I want to mention, we've talked about it before. The liquid that you see us putting in here is a combination of fish emulsion and vitamin B1. The vitamin B1 helps to stimulate root growth, and that fish emulsion helps give that beneficial bacteria and that kind of thing in with the tree itself. And of course, there's nutrition in there that the tree also needs. We also talked a little bit about planting depth. We have this mounded up really well. I'm at ground level here, which is probably about 2 to 3 inches from the crown. And if I take my finger there, there's actually a root nodule right there. So we'll pack that so the dirt is right there. You want to keep in mind that we also put a trench around here on the outside. This will be 2 or 3 inches deeper from there. And that'll allow this tree to really kind of settle into place. As we water it in over the next couple weeks, it'll really kind of start to sink just a little bit, and that allows for that to occur. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to get a small trench dug around this out to our irrigation line, make sure that's gonna work, and then move on to those other trees. We have these now in the ground. We've had a chance to connect to our irrigation, test out the irrigation just to make sure we have water flowing into these irrigation channels. Now what we're gonna need to do is go back and actually cut these trees back. The design that we have with our summer apples, so our Anna, our Dorsette, our Tropic Sweet, and these Ein Shemers is going to be an open center bowl type design. However, we need to make sure that our cages, to keep our rabbit and jackrabbit pressure away from the tree, we need to make sure that it's going to clear our cages. So what you're going to see us doing is coming through, testing that out, topping these, hopefully getting a scaffold or two if we can, and then we are going to be painting the trunks. We paint the trunks specifically because of the sunburn that we've had, that we've experienced with apple trees here in Arizona. In fact, our very first Anna apple that we planted in 2012 abruptly died about a year and a half later because we had it up against a block wall and we didn't do anything to protect the trunk. It got real bad sunburn all the way down through half of the tree, all the way around the cambium layer, and the top of the tree just stopped getting nutrition and the tree died. So we want to make sure that we're protecting the trunk until there was enough foliage on these trees to protect the trunk. Now, the paint that we use is Arizona's Best. It's their white tree trunk paint. You can get that inexpensively at Home Depot or Lowe's here in the Arizona area. And if you can't get it, if you're not here, you can't seem to find that, I know that it's a 50-50 mix of indoor latex paint and water. Okay, we're running out of daylight, we're getting tired, so we're gonna go ahead and finish up these trees and then we'll come back to you. One of the last things we do here is sometimes a little bit tough, but keep in mind, these trees, when they were in the ground in California at the Dave Wilson Nursery, the roots went out much further than what you're seeing when you get a bare root tree. So the root mass underneath the ground was far greater to support a tree that was this tall with a trunk this size. So we have already determined how high we need them to be. That's because of our jackrabbits. This easily keeps jackrabbits away from the tree and any scaffolding that's going to come off of the tree. So we know that from a height standpoint, we don't need to go any higher. You can see we painted right to the top of this to protect that entire trunk from the sun and sunburn. Now what we need to do is cut this even further back. We know that we're going to have an open center or a bowl type design. We do that with all of our summer fruiting apples to allow some of that sunshine in the spring to get in and help ripen up those apples, and we'll maintain that. And we also know that we need to cut back some of the overall trunk because the root mass that's now much smaller can't really support this very effectively. So what I'm going to do is determine where I want to cut. So I know that I can have scaffolding come out slightly below these, which is fine, they still can. So I can have branching come out here. I won't allow any branching further down because that will be just consumed by rabbits if we were ever to lose the cage. So I know I need to have some trunk above this to support scaffolding to come out, hopefully in each direction. So as far as my cut, I'm thinking that I'm probably going to be right about here. That's going to give me about 6 to 8 inches above the cage. I know this is about 3 feet, so I'm guessing this is about 3.5 feet or so. When I cut this, I am going to want to keep some of the scaffolding I have. I have one that's coming out here, one coming out this direction, one coming this way, and one coming this way, evenly spaced. So if those come back here in the spring, then we're going to be in good shape there. I want to make sure when I make my cut that I'm allowing for some dieback here that will occur on the trunk. So I'm going to go ahead and make the cut at an angle, one angle or the other, but right underneath this branch right here. That's what our tree is going to look like, and that's where my bowl is going to come out. Now I will tell you, if you don't have the rabbit pressure that we have here, I would definitely prefer this be much lower. In fact, I prefer this break be down here at about 2.5 feet or so. So if you don't have this issue that we have here with jackrabbits, definitely take this and drop it down even further. One other thing I'm looking at here is I'm looking at nice green cambium layer, which means there should be a good chance that this tree will come back. We've still got some work to do. If you've seen how we plant trees, we have an outer ring that we still need to do here that gives us about a 6 to 8 foot diameter ring for more irrigation away from the tree. And then of course, we're gonna come back, add mulch into here as well as inside this cage to allow moisture to stay in here where the root zone is to allow this tree to grow. Really looking forward to these Ein Shemer apple trees, and at this point we're just waiting for spring to roll around, keeping those fingers crossed and hoping that at some point in the next few weeks these start to turn green. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. And our Amazon shop, I'll leave a link down in the description. That's a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you.